Here's how the story begins. I was holding court at the Electrical Engineering Honors Society convention. I believe it's called Eta Kappa Nu. I'm not sure the students at the convention were all that thrilled to see me, but I had just given them an absolutely stunning talk on the future of computing and computer science that played into all of their predispositions, and I had shamelessly mocked the IEEE staff using this picture. I threw it up and said, obviously you know what all this is since it occurred only, 10 or 15 miles from the IEEE headquarters, and got this blank stare from the staff at the back of the room. John von Neumann, I said. Not a peep out of them. Computers, I said. You've heard of computers. And New Jersey. You know where New Jersey is. Well, all of that was apparently enough to win the hearts and minds of these young, impressionable persons. And so I spent much of the rest of the day huddled in a corner with several dozen of them, chatting about their hopes and fears and unrealistic dreams for the future. As we went around and around, I asked a fundamental question. What one activity has taught you the most about computing and computer science and programming? To a person, they gave the same answer. Hackathons. Hackathons, I said. Yes, hackathons, they repeated. You know, getting together and working on a contest to solve a problem. Well, I know what hackathons are. They had them back in my day, such as it was. But then I pushed back and said, that's fine and lovely. But what activity that reflects production, that reflects the kind of work you will be doing as a professional? What have you learned from that? And there was a pause. Maybe it was too complicated. Maybe they just really didn't want to deal with it. Maybe the shine on my speech was starting to fade. And then one of them said, but isn't a hackathon just like a plug fest? Well, as it happened, I actually knew what a plug fest was. Only a week or two before, I had been to the System Network Industry Association, the Memory Industry Association, and had learned that they held an annual plug fest to test different file systems and how they interoperate with each other. The basic idea is you get all the different kinds of file systems and one representative from each of their companies, put them in a large room, give them a challenge, and make sure that all your systems can work with each other. It does have more than a little superficial resemblance to a hackathon. You bring a lot of people, you put them in a hotel room, you give them food, usually of decent quality, but more than a little junk spread amongst it with lots of caffeine. Give them a problem, you tell them to solve it. As far as I can tell, this kind of process, the Plugfest, is a relatively new addition. If you go back through the IEEE library, you find a couple of references to them in the 2000s and nothing before. If it were a well-established way of handling production, you'd find a literature about it, that we would have studied it. We would have figured out how long these things are likely to go, what's the average number of errors you find, what kind of problems would be suggested by fixing a file system or anything. As one of the organizers of the SNIA Plugfest said, it's an n-squared problem. You want everyone to be able to work with everyone else. So that means you've got to deal with n choose 2's pair, which ends up being n times n minus 1 over 2. When you're dealing with 40 file systems, which is a number I remember from that conference, that means you've got 780 pairs. That's a lot of work, and there are very few ways of approaching that scale of problem in a systematic way, except getting everyone together and focusing them to concentrate on it all at once. So all that led back to my holding court at this conference. I suppose that we're doing a better job of training these people for the future than I thought we were. We hold student congresses, leadership retreats, team-building activities, and other things to help our students understand the nature of leadership, of making decisions, and ultimately of coordinating production. You don't really understand how to do any of these things until you've tried to do them yourself and begin to understand how much character is actually required. To that list of activities, apparently we now get to add the term hackathon because it is being used, or forms of it are being used, to coordinate production, to help people debug systems, and generally to make decisions about bigger technical activities. In this case, we're using the hackathon or the Plugfest or whatever you want to call it as an activity because we're building ever more complicated systems. But we're also doing it, at least in part, because it's what we've taught our students to do, and they are going out and finding a useful application for it. This is David Allen Greer for the Errant hashtag. Thanks for listening. Take care.